Well, as you can see here, this is not by me. As a matter of fact, if I can scroll this up a little bit, this is by this person right here. Now, I'm going to read off what they said here. This is one of their rants. Now, they posted this about 1 hour and 16 minutes ago, which is technically, well, it doesn't really say, so I'd have to assume if it's 1 hour and 16 minutes ago, I'd have to assume about 6:20. So, let's take a look at what they have to say here. This is, as you saw the name up there, Vorahk295. Well, you saw the name at the beginning, so hopefully you don't have to see it too much. But here's what they said, and I quote: "Yes, I ranting again. Sega are as much to blame as Flint." Okay, now remember, the name you saw at the beginning of this video is the person that did this. Now, here's what they said. "Yes, indeed I am. Now, for the most amazing you're likely to read on my page for a while, it's not about Ian Flint. I know, it's shocking. So, who do I have in my crosshairs today? Sega. What can be said about Sega? Well, they started off as Nintendo's slightly less intelligent rival, and ended up becoming their bitch in 2002. In other words, when they stopped doing consoles, it mainly became, their Nintendo's destination for games to be, made for their system and other consoles. After that, they made multiple very good handheld titles. Well, the console games steadily got worse, accumulating in a game too awful that it erased itself from the timeline. I think we all know which one that is. Then, however, things started to look up. Secret Rings was flawed, but playable, as was its sequel, Black Knight. And everyone loved Sonic Unleashed when it came out. And it's still not as bad, and it's still not a bad game. Of course, Sonic Colors was fantastic, and the console version of Generations was amazing. I personally think the 3DS version is mediocre, and that they overused the Rush formula and the play only as Sonic thing. I'd like to see a new style of gameplay with Tails playable, please. Oh, and they aren't rebooting in 2013-14. So Sega's story is currently one of success. The phoenix rising from the ashes, right? Well, kind of. However, let's talk about the connection with the comic. Now again, remember the person's name you saw at the beginning of this. At first glance, you might be thinking that the comic is a third-party development, which just uses the characters in exchange for handing Sega a big wad of cash. But you'd be wrong. You see, in the Flint era, and even back into the Penders and Bowlers runs, they imposed a load of mandates on the comic, which are largely to blame for some of the shit we complain about. Number one, and he's got it numbered down like in an outline. Number one, Sonic cannot be allowed to have a steady relationship. This one pisses me off. I ship certain pairings, and you should all be aware of that by now. If not, you don't care about my Sonic stuff, so why the hell are you reading this? The problem with this one is that it makes Sonic look like some kind of shallow, emotionally really stunted bastard who is too pathetic to tell Sally how he feels about her, and even when he does, Sega forces them to break up later, and every time it happens, it's retarded. I just wish that Penders had been allowed to finish one of the plot points from the Zordon arc. Sonic proposed to Sally, and she accepted. then we would have had none of this pairing war shit. Now, right there, I have to disagree a little bit with what they said. It doesn't matter if, as they put it, Pendus would have been allowed to do what he wanted to do. We still would have had the Son Amy side battling the Son South side, because they would be because, no offense to the Son Amy fans, because I'm an Amy Rose fan myself, but they would be bitching and complaining that, you know, the comic and Sega favored Sonic and Sally over Sonic and Amy. Okay. Number 2. Sonic is not allowed to be set at or cropped. Or, well, get the idea. You get the idea there. Well, I'm more annoyed by the one above. This one is several million times more retarded. Superman cries. Batman cries. Spider-Man cries. It's something that happens when you hit a low point. Not crying does not make you more badass. It makes you seem emotionally detached from what's going on. Fun fact. The original cover for 238 has Sonic with tears in his eyes as he lunges at Mecha Sally. This is good. It shows that Sonic does not want to be in this position. However, Sega forced them to edit out the tears, making Sonic just look rage-filled and pissed off with Sally. This is the most pathetic thing I have ever seen. Number 3. Sonic can never be uncool. Honestly, this one has me stumped as to what has actually been affected by it. The one thing I can guess is that it makes Sonic look like a conceding thwart rather than a hero you can root for. I mean, at least STH, Sonic the Comic, Sonic has a heart of gold within, along with 2 very good reasons why he is a prick. Seriously, would you want to live with Super Sonic in your head? Archie Sonic is an asshole, which is cool with Sega's view. Well, which is cool in Sega's view. I was seeing what my dog was doing there. But not in anyone else's. What Sega seemed to have forgotten is that whether something is cool or not is entirely subjective to the reader. For example, I think Sonic 06 was a big steaming pile of shit. The current arc in the comic has been dragged out and the same plot repeated 3 times over, with a 4th one likely next issue. And Scourge the Hedgehog is a crappy recoloring that fails to satirize the fan characters he is based on. I'd rather watch Bloodshot than read Lockdown. But there are some who think that all those things are awesome. I personally find the DS and the Wii to be pretty cool. But there are some who would disagree with me on that. Coolness is subjective, and Sega's definition doesn't seem to match up with anyone else's. Number 4. Sega cast over Archie cast. Hey, do you know why I liked the idea of the Archie comic at first? Because it preserved the characters that I had grown up on, that being the Knothole gang, and let them continue on as characters. You know what I don't want to see? Even more of that fucking annoying little pink shit stain. No offense to anybody that's a fan of her. And I think that was a little uncalled for there. If I wanted to see the Sega cast in action, I'd play one of the games. Sally, Bunny, Antoine Rhoda, and to a slightly lesser extent Nicole, have been the core supporting cast of the comic ever since issue 0. And it's really annoying that now all of them have been sidelined to give Amy, and again that's uncalled for, no offense, Amy more screen time. The reasoning behind that is not just that I hate Amy, well, kind of. The reason is actually one of the same reasons that I hate Amy for in the first place. She's blander than a meal made entirely out of cardboard. whereas the other freedom fighters actually have some depth to them, which makes them interesting characters. Now, again, I have to disagree with that part. Amy did get some characterization a little bit in the comic. Let's not forget that. Iron Dominion saga and her maturity during the 222 issue, in my opinion. Number 5. No development allowed. Sonic is a static character. This is in and of itself not a problem. The problem comes in when you realize that he is living in a world where almost everyone aside from his sidekick and his stalker is developing. This means that Sonic does not seem that interesting. Archie's Sonic is boring because Sega won't allow him to change. The problem is that Sega does not make comics, movies, or TV shows. They make games. In a game, the most important thing is gameplay. I'm really not that interested in Sonic's character when I'm killing dozens of robots and enjoying myself. But in a comic, story and character are paramount. And when your hero is a static character who never changes, all his friends do, it's boring. One of the reasons I like Sonic and the Black Knight is that for once Sonic had some character. It shows that he will never stop being himself. It shows that he will never stop himself from doing what he feels is right, even if it means playing the villain once in a while. I guess I can't be the hero every time. Is still one of my favorite Sonic quotes ever. But Archie never lets Sonic do that. Number 6. I am bulletproof. The Sega characters are not allowed to be badly injured. Sonic is an invincible hero, which is basically a more specific way of saying Gary Stu. His losses are so few and far between. When he does lose, it seems like an ass pull. Now the problem with this is that the current active team is made entirely of Sega characters. This means that they are quite literally unstoppable. T-Pup can die. But really, who honestly gives a shit about a Deluxe Ex Macha dog? If it had been Amy up on the death egg in that roboticizer chamber, it wouldn't have worked. These characters cannot be harmed, and they cannot permanently lose. As such, they are going to defeat Eggman and save Sally, because if they didn't, Sega would have mandated that Sonic wins anyway. Why is this a bad thing? I mean, loads of fans have faith that Sally will be saved. My belief that she will be is not derived from faith in the writer, but faith in Sega not to allow anything to go wrong. Now, why are the mandates even a problem? Sega are just preserving their intellectual property, right? Well, the comic is, let's be honest, one big, this is Sonic, he is cool, like, buy these games and be him in them. Advert, or in other words, advertisement. In other words, a way for Sega to make more money. However, since we have a mediocre at best writer being screwed over and made worse by these mandates, less people are going to want to buy it. So by mandating all this stuff, they are actually going to hinder sales and lose out on some of the money. But hey, that's understandable. I mean, Sonic getting married and showing empathy for once affects the story of the games, right? Sega are the sort who are quite happy to get money from third-party comics and TV shows, but not make them canon. In other words, they are dicking around with Archie, screwing Flynn over, and playing a large role in making the comics suck, and not even having the decency to let it be canon. If it's not accepted into the continuity of the games, then it makes it look like the mandates are being done out of spite. Fitting, since the head of Sonic team openly hates the Western continuity, despite Naoto Oshima, one of the creators of Sonic, stating that American culture directly influences Sonic's creation. So yeah, Sega are just as bad. So yeah, Sega is just as bad as Flynn in this matter. So less Sega are perfect and Archie is the devil for. So more or less Sega is less Sega are perfect and Archie is the devil for ruining the work. Now some of the wording there you might say kind of doesn't make sense when I will provide the link. But there are some things that you probably will read and that I read that you would agree on and disagree on. And this is just this person, and again you saw the name at the beginning of the video, this is just their opinion. It's not mine. And they got a right to their opinion. And if they feel this way, hey, you can probably tell they're not the only one. But if they feel this way, that's fine, because pretty much they feel Sega, in their mind, is not allowing Ian Flynn and Archie Comics to do much. But then again, you have to understand, maybe from a business standpoint, and I've mentioned this as well in a video and in some texting and in some typing, it might be a pattern. It's like every big anniversary issue, like say the 50s, if you will, every now and then, like the 75s and the 50s, you gotta allow the game cast characters, or the game characters, to get the spotlight. So, well, in that genre, if you know what I mean. So that's why I think they're doing this. That's just my opinion, and it just like, this person has a right to their opinion. But what are your thoughts? Do you agree with some of what they said? Comment down below, tell me what you think, and I'll talk to you later.